There.
Okay. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to this is our fifth little forum on the topic of no nickel for genocide. Um, where perhaps it might be a good idea if I did a brief review.
Introduction.
Um,
Introduction. But everyone.
okay, and then wants us to do an introduction. I'm Dave.
Howard. Alan. Adam.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Or
Brett.
hi. Hi, I'm Steve.
hi.
I'm Joseph, and Mike's with me on speakerphone.
Okay, we've been working on this for about a year, a little over a year. It started out, we were upset with the Israeli Zionist genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza. And we started looking into it. We knew that Sudbury had a history of nickel and war. And anyway, we looked at it more and more. Um, One of the things we showed is that Sudbury is synonymous with nickel, and that nickel is synonymous with war. That the two world wars could not have been fought in the way they were if it was not for the discovery of nickel in Sudbury, the development of the metallurgy to separate nickel from copper, and the development of a market in the armour-cladding of the dreadnoughts, which were the ultimate weapon of World War I. We also showed how war and war preparations distorted the economic, the politics, and social life of Sudbury and despoiled the environment. Um, One of the things we showed is that the economy in Sudbury was closely related to war and especially war preparations. During periods of actual war, there tended to be a shortage of labor, which was a limiting factor. But in the period leading up to the war, um, you had expansion of production. Um, we also talked about how it affected politics with the in the time of the First World War. There's a big hullabaloo about Inco shipping nickel to Germany in this German submarine. And it gave rise to the building of the Port Colborne nickel refinery. Um, the similar thing happened in the period in the 30s leading up to the Second World War. John Foster Dulles, who is known as the architect of the Cold War, but as a member of the board of directors of INCO, he organized this nickel trust with INCO and Falconbridge, the Rothschilds, nickel interest in France, and the German, the same company that um, manufactured the um, poison gas that was used in the concentration camps and the gas ovens. Anyway, so we pointed out that history is very much tied up with nickel, and nickel is tied up with war. And we showed that although that the way that nickel has been used in war has changed, nickel is still an important, vital war instrument. Like in one of these modern warplanes, the engine is a nickel alloy. a lot of electronics have nickel in them. The landing gear, Collins aerospace. Howard. Anyway, the bombs that dropped on Gaza have nickel in their casings.
Maybe you should also mention, if people don't know this, that we sponsor a bill that Charlie Angus read out. Do you want to talk about that? No?
Okay, and then was saying that we sponsored or we ran a petition during the summer. We called it the No Nickel for Genocide petition. The government called it petition. What was it? 5018. But I'm kind of ticked off about that because we did a lot of work to get 4,500 signatures. Charlie Angus read it in Parliament. It was given to the government, and the government was so afraid of this petition that they prorogued the Parliament and then dissolved it and called elections, so they wouldn't have to deal with this. Anyway, we spent a couple of months where we talked about both the global and then the Canadian nickel industry. I'm perhaps spending too much time on this. The global nickel industry was very different today than it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, at the time of World War I, World War II, Sudbury was responsible for about 90%, 85–90% of world nickel. And it was openly talked about that the nickel was used in the weapons of war. Today, Canada's contribution to world nickel output is about 5%, 4–5%. And they avoid talking about nickel and war completely. They don't want to recognize that anymore. We talked about how the output has, especially mining, has shifted from Canada to Southeast Asia, especially Indonesia, which accounts for more than half of world nickel these days, but also the Philippines and New Caledonia. And nickel refining has shifted to China, where they talk about a lot of the nickel is used for batteries in electronic vehicles. There is some of it is used for weapons of war. That's one thing we haven't looked into too much.
David, I think one misconception we should also tackle, since we have so many new people here, is that we're not against mining nickel in Sudbury. Not at all. Yeah, what we are against is not having control over the value chain of it. That is what it's used for, and where it's used, and where it's shipped, and where those end products end up, right? So we're not against, like I said, mining the nickel, right? We're against what it's being used for, and the fact that Canada, generally speaking, doesn't have a say in where the products that it's used for are shipped to.
That's exactly a key point that I wanted to make eventually, but it's good
Well,
to,
no, because there was a gentleman that on one of our recent rally, he made a comment that that we shouldn't be against mining nickel and this and that.
no, we're not against mining nickel. Nickel is a dual purpose commodity. You can either use it to make stainless steel kitchen sinks, medical scalpels or um, equipment in hydro electric stations, all sorts of things. Or you can put it into tanks, into F-15s, into MX-80 bombs, into nuclear submarines, into aircraft carriers. And one of the things that we definitely want is that Canadian nickel just be used for peaceful purposes, for the benefit of humanity, and not for destruction. Weapons of war are have no useful purpose. They're used according to um, their how they were designed. They are only used to destroy things, to kill people, destroy things, to poison the environment. We don't want the nickel that we have in Sudbury contributing to that. Same time, nickel is a very valuable, element. There's something like 300,000 plus commodities that are made with nickel. All but a few thousand of them are peaceful, or like ours. Yeah. Um, and one of the things that, if we get time and to talk about um, all this thing about Trump's tariffs and how Canada should respond, and nickel, Ford was saying a lot of bluster. He was saying how he would deny nickel to U.S., but really he's just trying to figure out a plan, make a deal to sell it to Ring of Fire and Sudbury Metals to sell it to the U.S. war machine. It's just what's the terms of what the deal, and we don't want it at all. And I've been thinking a little bit about that. I'm not sure that I wanted to get into this right now, but if the question comes up, how do we respond to Trump's tariffs? One of the ways would be to not so much this rah elbows up sort of I don't object to the spirit of it, but I'm not sure about the effectiveness of it. We need to think if we're going to lose half of our production because we don't ship it to the States, what replaces it? Is there anything to replace it? Yes, there is. One of the things I was leading into at the end of the discussion on the Canadian nickel industry.
So Julie is saying that makes sense. She's also asking, do you know what % of their profits are from war-related use? And she's saying, I guess that would be hard to know. Having a clear message is what matters in terms of what we can do.
The profits of Valley, or
I'm assuming so. The profits of
yeah, that information is somewhat hard to find. One of the things with Valley when it took over Inco is that all the Sudbury operations and finances and accounting gets
Buried in Brazil.
buried in the whole thing. Um, um, So what was the question again?
Sorry, so the question was, do you know what percent of their profits are from war-related use?
Okay, I don't know what percentage of the profits, but on Sunday, you know Vic Fedeli, he's the MPP for Nipissing, North Bay.
Sure.
And he's the Minister of Economic Development, Jobs, and Trade in the Ontario government. He said 56% of the nickel used by the U.S. Department of Defense comes from Ontario, which is Sudbury.
Steve says, didn't some U.S. senators say 60% of Sudbury nickel goes to U.S. military production? Well, 56 is not that far away from 60. So
Yeah, somebody else said 60. That was, I don't know his name, the Canadian Consul General in New York. He was on American TV 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was not really paying. uh, anyway, he said 60% comes from Canada. So 60% comes from Canada, 56% comes from Ontario. The nickel that's from Newfoundland, I'm not positive, but I think it goes to Europe and Asia. It's right on the sea lanes, and there's a and a little bit down on the east coast of the U.S. Okay, did that answer the question? Yeah, I can't really tell you in terms of the profits, but 56% of all the nickel that's used in American weapons of war comes from Sudbury. Like, that's pretty telling, I think.
So I think we should start now with the document itself.
Pardon?
Do you want to start with the document? Do you want to start with the document?
Yeah. Okay.
You can read it from there if you'd like.
I read it better from my computer.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I'm going to start talking now about the topic of today's discussion, half an hour in, nickel in the United States. First thing is that the U.S. has very limited nickel mining and production capabilities. There's one nickel mine in Michigan that produces about 15,000 metric tons a year, but it's supposed to be closing down this year, and that's the only nickel mine they have. They're looking a little bit, maybe there's some other ones, but they're in the development stage. Okay, I'm going to read from a little bit what I've mine production. Anyway, the reliance on imports makes the U.S. vulnerable to its supply chain disruptions and geopolitical tensions, which is why Sudbury, being relatively close to the industrial heartland in the Great Lakes states, is important. I got some information later on. I don't think we'll get to it, but talks about the problems with the nickel from Russia and China. A significant portion of the nickel supply in the U.S. comes from recycling scrap metal, including stainless steel and nickel-based alloys. Recycling helps to mitigate some of the dependence on primary nickel imports. Yeah, I mentioned that mine in Michigan. It produces concentrate that it sends up to Valley in Sudbury to smelt and refine. Okay. Okay. The U.S. imports about 90,000 metric tons of nickel in various forms in 1923, valued at $4.3 billion. Half of this was in the form of unwrought, unalloyed nickel. Waste and scrap were the second most valuable form of nickel. Imports were valued at 476 million. Waste and scrap constituted just over 10% of nickel imports by dollar value, but 1/4 of US nickel imports by weight. So, anyway, the US, like being an industrial country for over 100 years, we've been using nickel. They're starting to accumulate a fair bit of scrap over the years, which they recycle. And now, actually, I think they use more scrap than primary new nickel. One of the things that besides unwrought nickel and scrap, they have something called nickel articles thereof, NEC, in item number 7508-1, which accounts for 10% of U.S. nickel imports. That is a fancy word for manufacturing goods. It's not elsewhere specified. If you look at the quantities and the values, this stuff is worth the most per kilogram. It's worth about $100 a kilogram. Unwrought nickel that Canada ships to the U.S. is about $18 a kilogram.
Is that because all they really have to do is separate the nickel from the other things and they've got perfectly usable nickel and the unwrought needs to be more manufactured before it's usable?
Sorry, I said what the unwrought nickel, the nickel that is refined nickel that's produced in Sudbury and exported, is it's briquettes and pellets now these days. It used to be electrolytic nickel, and in Long Harbor in Newfoundland, it's manufactured by a hydrometallurgical process. It doesn't go through the smelting or refining smelting process. It doesn't use heat. It is chemistry.
Just to clarify, Long Harbor is a mine in Newfoundland, yes?
No. The mine is Voisey Bay.
Okay.
That's in Labrador. Long Harbor is port on the south shore of the of Newfoundland, where the refinery, Valley's refinery is. It's a hydrometallurgical process. Uses various chemicals to separate the nickel and the copper from other substances.
And so, and a large part of that gets shipped to Europe.
I'm pretty sure. Well, Europe and I think also Asia, because it's right on the ocean. So it makes more sense to. It's generally cheaper to ship by sea than it is by land, or definitely by air. Okay. Okay, the U.S. also imports considerable. Oh shoot!
Yeah.
Okay, also there's considerable quantity of nickel powders and flakes. Nickel alloy products from different industrial countries, Germany, Japan, South Korea, and that. But generally, what the U.S. does, it manufactures, takes the raw nickel, manufactures nickel alloys, because nickel isn't used as a thing in itself. It's used mixed with other metals. And the transformation of these alloys into finished or semi-finished goods and parts, that adds a lot of extra value to the nickel. As I said, the nickel coming from Sudbury, refined nickel, it's about $18 a kilogram. But these manufacturer products are about $100 a kilogram. So anyway, like, which actually gets me back to what we could do to respond to Trump's tariffs. If, like, Canada mines the nickel, it mills the nickel, it smelts the nickel, and it refines the nickel. Well, it does some of those things. And then it exports it all. But we have this very valuable commodity, which is the basis of modern industry, like and we just say we dug it out of the ground. We've got it in good shape and a place that can be transported relatively cheap.
Hewers of wood and so on and so forth.
Jar of water.
Pardon?
Hewers of wood, drawers.
Hewers of wood and drawers of water. Anyway, oh, there goes my hearing aid again. Like if we didn't, if we, I'm getting switching topics a little bit, but if we cut down nickel production for shipping, we didn't ship nickel to sell nickel to the States for war purposes. Well, it would cut down. We'd still have half of everything, but that's, a couple of thousand people have lost their jobs. But if we had a plan in place whereby immediately we put those unemployed workers to work rather than leaving them to fend for themselves. When people are laid off, like, good luck, buddy. Like, there was like either retraining for some of them, or jobs in the construction of the plant. And then once, if you developed a modern mini mill to produce nickel alloys, and a stainless steel mill to produce stainless steel, which is, and we start thinking about shipping to Europe and Asia rather than South, even though it might be a little bit more costly. There's like, we can develop a modern, self-reliant, independent economy, and we could fill in that roadblock where we don't have, where if we have to go to the States to get everything done, then we buy it a little bit back at high prices and that. Anyway, I got off topic again a bit, but no, that is one of the things that I think is important sort of lesson from the role of Canada is that, like, we in Canada don't do anything to support war, or we don't do anything that product was produced couldn't be used for a peaceful purpose. It's only when, first of all, the fact that Vale and Glencore get to decide what's done with it and who it's sold to. I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway,
You were talking about how Glencore and Vale don't get
Yeah,
to decide what it's used for.
Canadians don't get to decide what are the resources of our country are. They the decision is made in this case by Vale and Glencore, two of the big five multinational diversified global mining companies, who are largely influenced, if not controlled, by companies like BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard Group.
And I'm sorry for interrupting, but we actually have a precedent for this when it comes to who we will allow to receive our uranium and what they're going to use it for. You know, we have strict rules about that. So it's not like we don't have these things where we know we want to do it. So it's possible.
That's a good point.
Well within parliamentary abilities here.
If we can decide what happens to countries that import our uranium, like if we can decide what they do with that uranium, then why can't we decide what countries do with that nickel that they import?
Right. Because I'm betting our nickel has killed a lot more people than our uranium has. I hate to say it.
Probably both killed of his.
Yeah, but you know.
Do the people online have any questions or any comments?
I have a question. I'm wondering about just what you said there around the uranium. Was the bill that was written or proposed this summer, did it touch on that for the nickel? Or can you share us what the bill was, or is there a way to find it online at our Commons website or something?
This was a what do you call it when you sign a
Memorandum of agreement.
no, what they put together for Charlie Angus to read out.
Oh, is that what you're talking about, Julie? The petition that we put together that was read in Parliament?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it included something like that uranium.
We didn't use that as a, because I only just thought of that now. But we did mention that Canadian workers and Canadians have a right to know what happens to the product of their labor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what I could do is, if anyone's interested, what I could do is pull up the video of Charlie Angus reading it in Parliament, and if anyone's been interested in doing that right now.
Sure, let's take a break and watch Charlie Angus.
Okay, yeah. All right, let me get that. Let me just get
great.
that. Perfect. Let me get that pulled up then. Let's see here.
Canada agreed not to send weapons to Israel.
Pardon?
Canada agreed not to send weapons to Israel.
Yeah, well, then
Now-
$70 million artillery.
Now Melanie Jolly is looking into 30 incidents of permits.
She is looking into it.
Yeah.
Into what, 30?
Incidents of permits for export.
So I'm just going to cue this up for everyone. Let me bring this up here. Let me see here. In tab, sorry. Tab 2, new window. There we go. Okie dokie. And there we go. And then let's see here. Let's pull this up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Your screen sharing is paused. So there we go. No, there we go.
I can't hear him. I'm sorry. I can
Oh.
see him talking, but I can't hear him.
Can anyone else hear this or not? Breck, can you
Oh,
hear Charlie speak?
No,
Oh,
Put this up.
No, it's not about that. It's because I think it's using just give me a minute. Let me see what I can do here. Okay. Let's see. Just a moment, please, and thank you.
No problem.
Let me just. Okay. No, I don't want that. No. No. Let me see if this works. All right. Tell me if this works, Julie.
I'm still not hearing it.
Okay. Let me just think about this here. Give me a moment.
Yep.
Sorry. I don't know why.
We
this
can
is-
always watch it after, after the meeting, before the next.
so Lori's son, has been working.
while you're looking for that, do you mind if I make just a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, her
Yeah,
son, yes.
I think one of the things you raised this evening, and I've been following the work that you guys have been doing for a bit now, and you raised it again this evening, is that there's nickel and war are completely tied together, and the development of resource extraction of nickel in Sudbury was tied to war production right from the get-go.
Mhm.
And I think it's really that experience that people have in communities like Sudbury. Like, I come from Cape Rio, and I don't live there anymore, but like many people in the north, resource extraction has always been tied. I don't want to get bombastic here. Resource extraction is tied to military production and integrating Canada into the US war machine. And when in this election, the parties are advocating that, like Doug Ford in Ontario, or Carney saying that they will make Canada and the US, Canadian resources, American production, a dynamo force internationally. What they're talking about is integrating Canada into deeper into the military war machine of the US. And what they're after is the resources from like the rare earth resources in North Timmins. I lose names.
Ring of Fire.
Ring of Fire. But whether you talk what happened with nickel production in Manitoba, or whether you talk oil production from Alberta, or whether you talk any natural resource production that they're looking at, be it in Ontario or Quebec or wherever, what they're after is it's the escalation of the war preparation is why they're even looking at that. And that's what you have brought out tonight, as you have brought out in your other material. This is why Sudbury was developed in the first place. And then when you look at what actually benefit of the people wherever these resource extraction industries have blossomed, this is not a nation building plan. Like when Carney or somebody says they're going to increase the resource extraction, eliminate the checks and balances to make sure that it's environmentally safe. They're talking about selling out the land and labor of our country. They're not talking about a nation building plan. And the evidence is right in front of our faces. Like, you look in Sudbury, they even put the Vale even put their offices underground so they don't have to pay municipal tax. You look at Timmins, which is the largest gold strike in history in the world. And if you're driving through Timmins and you fall in a pothole, you may come out in Beijing. You don't know how far you're going to fall. And that's the reality for when they're talking in this election about making Canada a prosperous country and building a nation building project on resource extraction. Life is right in front of our faces. Number one, it is for military integration. And number two is that the people and our communities get nothing out of it. They like you make a living while it's in production, and then it's over, and you're tossed by the wayside. You're finished. And that's why so many people leave the North and go looking for work somewhere else. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I don't want to go on and on. Thank you
Those
for
were all excellent points. Like that really summed it up really well. Like that was beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, just, oh, I think I forgot my point. Yeah, Doug Ford was saying during the provincial election, he was talking about all the prosperity was going to come to Northern Ontario with the development of the Ring of Fire. And the answer to that is just send somebody for 1,000-mile trip through Northern Ontario and
Look at the well.
see the prosperity that's been given to Northern Ontario through resource extraction by digging up the minerals from the mines and chopping down the trees and building dams.
And now destroying one of the largest muskegs.
Okay, I'm gonna go back and carry on. Have you got
What? I don't know what.
United States nickel imports a chart? It's a little bit further down below there.
Oh, right
There
there.
we are.
Okay.
Yeah, this chart shows you information on U.S. nickel imports. $4.4 billion. Half of that was unwrought nickel. That was just, and most of the rest is manufactured or semi-manufactured goods that are imported from other industrial countries like Germany, United Kingdom, Japan, South Korea. But Canada, the nickel from Canada is this unwrought, not alloyed. Okay, we got it out of the earth, but it's up to you now. Okay, here's another chart. It talks about U.S. imports from Canada of nickel. In last year, unwrought nickel, nickel waste and scrap, and no, wait a minute. I'm my eyes are screwing. Unwrought nickel is most of what we're selling. All the other types of nickel are in relatively small quantities. If you look at the next chart, the U.S. nickel imports by country, this data is for 2020 and 2021. But in 2020, Canada exported or U.S. imported 70,000 tons of nickel, which was 51% of U.S. imports. And another 9,000 tons or 6.7% of nickel imports was from Germany, not Germany, Norway. Well, Norway is Glencore, is Sudbury. That's Canadian nickel too. It was just refined in Norway, and then shipped back to the United States. The other countries, there are about 10 countries that the U.S. Imports nickel from in smaller quantities. The only one that's perhaps changed today from the numbers here is Russia. Since the invasion of the Ukraine by Russia, the amount of imports the U.S. Nickel imports from Russia has almost disappeared. These are just two sort of charts, tables that I found. United States imports of from Canada of nickel.
Oh, so you've got Finland up there as well.
Pardon?
Did you mention that Finland as well is probably Canadian ore?
No, Finland is some Finnish, mostly Russian.
Okay.
Really? No.
Well, it's right next to
They're
Russia.
next to each other.
Yeah. This chart here, this graph, like I don't really know why in like 2007 they had so much, and like in the rest of the time, it's that's one of those things I found I put in the document, and I haven't started out yet.
You're asking why in 2007 the United States imported so much nickel from Canada?
Okay, let me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a significant amount.
Maybe it was a lower price.
There was a market crash in 2007. That might have been an opportunity for them to buy more.
Yeah.
The price may have dropped.
In 2009, 2010, where it's really low, that was that long Inco Valley strike.
So
right?
production was down.
So I understand that being down. I just don't understand why it was so high. Anyway, we'll find that out.
Maybe the lead up to like
They knew the strike was getting voted on.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was the war that they were getting ready for, you know, some
Well,
other.
2007, 2000,
I think I can.
No,
Well,
the invasion of Afghanistan was 2001. The
Right.
invasion of
Yeah.
Iraq was 2003.
if you look at this, it's like 19 and 2000. It's not until about 2004 that it starts to go up, and then 2007 is really high, and then, well, that's the strike, it drops.
Right,
And then this is,
but the 2004, I can
Yeah.
see that being Iraq.
this, the last year there's an upsurge. That might be the war in Ukraine,
2022.
2022, 2023.
Uh,
Might be. Anyway, those aren't important things. Clicking out one more time, domestic nickel consumption in the United States.
There.
wow.
Nickel consumption in the United States over the 1992 to 2023 has increased, but quite slightly. That's only about 207,000 tons to about 219,000 tons over 30 years, which is not a big increase. I forget whether this included scrap or not.
You would think it would include scrap.
It's a large amount now.
You have to read the fine print, like comparing numbers. You may be able to compare them, and they may be completely different.
Here it is. Scrap as a portion of total nickel usage increased from about 30% in 1991 to about 50% in 2021.
Thank you.
That is a scrap.
Scrap.
Yeah, no, the importance of scrap in the U.S. nickel market. but has increased. One thing about scrap and primary nickel, new nickel, is that the scrap tends to have impurities in it. There's the new refined nickel, it tends to be relatively pure. The new nickel is what goes into the weapons manufacture. The recycled nickel is what goes into producing consumer
Right.
items. So you don't need the same degree of purity. You can, ordinary wear and tear, it is fine. The heat and streams stresses in a jet engine or whatever need
Pure nickel.
pure nickel or
Measurable, you know?
yeah. Oh, here's an interesting comment. I'm not sure where I got this from, but it says plotting U.S. nickel consumption against the political party holding the presidency shows that nickel consumption generally increases under Democratic administrations and declines slightly under Republican administrations. I can't remember where I got that from.
That's a interesting tip.
Kind of makes sense. The Democrats do more war.
Well, not only that, but the Democrats tend to spend more money on everything. You know, so if you look at it as part of the large part of the budget, they also spend more money on social services and things like this, right? And the conservatives tend to knock everything back.
Okay, next chart. Yeah, this is a chart showing between 1990 or so and 2023 the primary, that's new, and scrap nickel consumption in the U.S. The scrap is in yellow, and you'll see it's like half of the primary nickel in 1990, but in the last few years they're about the same. Okay, so that was my first introduction into the U.S. nickel industry. Let me go here. I got way too much information to give to you guys tonight.
Yeah, I have to go out for a second, but you can, if we have an opportunity, you can speak up.
Oh, I was looking for this graph of where Canadian nickel enters the US. And 93% of the Canadian nickel that enters the US, I'll find it. 93% of the nickel that enters the US enters through Buffalo or Detroit. And that sort of makes sense given the location of Sudbury. But also one of the functions that the Port Colborne facility has now is it packs the nickel for shipping. So Buffalo is just a little bit to the east, and Detroit is 200 miles to the west. There, that makes sense that those are the two ports of entry. And like one of the things I wanted to do, but I haven't done, is make some maps showing that route and then where the main nickel alloy stainless steel manufacturers are. And they're all in the, I won't say all, but many of them are in those states to the south of the Great Lakes. Pennsylvania, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, West Virginia. Like the nickel, where all the nickel goes next is it ends up in that part of country. The rest of the Canadian nickel that went to the United States, some went to through Ogdensburg, New York, which is not far from um, uh, Clayville, New York, which is where Pratt and Whitney has
I was gonna say,
a factory. So I'm got a thesis that nickel powder, because it's quite a bit more expensive than the nickel that's going through Detroit and Buffalo. Nickel powder for manufacturing of jet engines. Don't have absolute proof yet, but pretty probable.
well, I was watching this documentary and it was talking about how like a lot of these weapons companies, they do what's called political engineering, right? Which is where they'll set up, weapons plants in key districts, right? And they won't like set up, even though it's more efficient, they won't just set it up like they won't have like one massive facility. They'll put facilities all over the place. And the reason for that is so that um if a bill comes down saying we want to reduce, funds for weapons manufacturing, right? Well, what that means basically is that those funds won't be going to those districts, right? And so you'll have those districts say, well, no, we want to keep that money flowing. So you'll have all these districts saying, no, we don't, they'll kill the bill, basically. So that's what's called political engineering. Just smart, actually. Quite smart.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of that. Well, not gerrymandering, but
Engineering.
you want my vote. Well, give me $50 million for my area to build this weapons plant or whatever.
Right.
The American political system is
And then you
broad.
And then you can threaten the senators and the governor
Right.
for voting a certain way, or else there might be problems with our factory that we've built in your place.
Yeah.
It's-
Well, yeah.
Anyway, I have now way too much information to present tonight in its entirety, but I will try to give you a quick overview. I got a list or information on the U.S. stainless steel, nickel alloy, and nickel powder manufacturers. We'll start with a company. We'll start with the nickel alloy manufacturers. And the first one I want to talk about is a company called Special Metals Corporation, which is it's now a subsidiary of a company called Precision Castings Corporations, and is owned by Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. It purchased Inco had established a nickel alloy manufacturing facility in Huntington, West Virginia in the 20s. When they were after the end of the First World War, and they were trying to develop new uses for nickel. They did quite a bit of scientific work and research, which is quite useful. But in 1995 or 1996, Inco sold that facility to this company, Special Metals. So, which was 10 years before the Inco sold everything to Valley. So I'm thinking that Inco was already thinking of getting out of the sort of the more manufacturing aspects of the nickel industry, and was retreating into the mining and resource extraction aspect of it. And then they sold it entirely, and I don't know what happened to them.
I bet they regret it now, though.
Pardon?
I bet they regret it now.
Yeah. Um, anyway, Special Metals is headquarters in New Hartford, New York, but as I said, the main plant is in Huntington, West Virginia. It's the world's largest inventor, developer, and producer of nickel alloy and cobalt alloys, with a portfolio of more than 100 alloy compositions, rare products, and welding consumables, over 80% of which were invented in SMC's own laboratories. That's Ingalls Laboratories.
Oh, you're still up there.
Yeah, okay. Brief history of the company. The origins of today's special metals can be traced back to 1870, when the Henry Wigan and Company began manufacturing specialty metal products in England. The company grew to consist of metal forming operations in Birmingham and Hereford, England, and Glasgow, Scotland, before it was acquired by the British Moe Nickel Company, which itself was acquired by International Nickel in 1928. It talks about the history of founding of Inco. The site at Huntington was selected for numerous advantages, such as the area's pool of ready workers, inexpensive natural resources like coal and natural gas, and access to river and rail networks. Built at a cost of $3.5 million, it opened in 1922 and was advertised as, quote, the most modern and largest rolling mills devoted solely to production of Monel metal and malleable nickel. Anyway,
Probably the most modern and largest in the world at that time.
at that time, yeah, it was. I read that special metals still were responsible for 80% of the nickel alloy production in the United States, but I don't want to actually say that for sure. One of those things that you're looking for something else and you read this and that's really interesting, and then you go back to find it and you can't find it. Anyway, there's a bit of history here. One of the interesting here, following the outbreak of World War II, the facility mobilized to support the war effort, including the top secret production of materials vital to the Manhattan Project, the effort that developed the atomic bomb. As part of the project, Inco workers melted down nickel and separated uranium from the liquidized metal. They then transferred the extracted uranium to enrichment plants. Anyway, it talks about the post-war economy, Vietnam. Okay, it was 1998 that the Inco sold it.
Korean War.
It talks some more about there was Atomic Energy Corporation had a section of a plan for dealing with radioactive materials in the 1950s. Anyway, this is the major nickel alloy manufacturing company in the United States.
In the world.
It may be up to 80% of the market, but I think it's probably about 50. But I don't know for sure. What is this? Yeah, employs 850 workers. These companies are not huge companies. They're in the hundreds or low thousands of employees rather than and 80,000 or what is that Valley has, I think 250,000 workers worldwide.
And again, the increase in value of these products, that fewer and fewer workers are involved as you go up the scale as well.
Well, it was a research and development company more than anything
More than
else.
anything else, yeah. A lot of
But it was also a producing company, because once they researched and developed it manufactured it is required to
Yeah.
go to various different
and that
industries.
alloy becomes their property. So they own the rights to that recipe. Yeah, so the money is in this processing more than anything else, because Sudbury certainly doesn't get it.
Well, I mean, that's the issue, though, right? I mean, we sell what? What did you say that, like, we, for example, the nickel we sell is what, $18 per
About $18 a kilogram.
$18 a kilogram, and then we buy product from the United States that are $100 per
Yeah.
kilogram. So there,
And I would say the same amount of work goes into it to mine it and smelt it, and that as goes into maybe even less in the production of alloys, but it's the value added goes to the States, not to Canada.
so that's more than what? More than more than what, 300%?
Well, 5 times.
If I 500%.
500%. There you go then.
I don't know the details of how much what manufacturing is, but I'm just saying, like, if this is getting back to how to react to Trump's tariffs, like, we should be looking at sort of breaking that. Canada should be looking at breaking that bottleneck, that we don't have any nickel alloying stainless steel production capacities, because once we have ability to produce those, then you can manufacture a whole range of other materials, items.
So-
I wonder, even, like, do we manufacture stainless steel sinks in Canada, or are they all imported?
So
Exactly.
Steve is asking a question. He asks, and Steve, you're more than welcome to come up on mic and ask your question if you'd like.
I'll come up on mic. It's not so much a question really as I missed the name of the company that Dave was referring to, but it really speaks to what the role of what hewers of wood and drawers of water is in relationship to where real value gets added to the raw materials that are extracted. And so that company that Dave was referring to, that Inco sold off, that did the research.
Special metals.
Yeah. I mean, that's really that kind of development of Canadian economy is destroyed by the fact that we're kept in the position of being resource extraction. And so, like, I think somebody raised earlier this evening, who decides what happens with what we produce is so critical. And who decides, I mean, it is very critical. And the exploring that question of the whole integration of production that takes place, how it's so integrated in this modern world we live in, and yet we who produce it don't have any say over what happens with it. And so it wasn't so much a question as what it was bringing to mind to me to hear the remarks that you were making.
I think the best answer to that question as to who decides what happens with what we produce, we basically decide. Because if we don't say, for example, with the uranium, if we say to countries that are purchasing our uranium that you can only use this uranium for such and such purposes, then we decide. But if we don't put any conditions on countries purchasing our nickel, then again, we decided by not deciding.
Like long ago, we sold can-do reactor to India, but
And Pakistan.
it was for energy. It was for hydro, well, for power
All we can do.
Mhm.
versus
We gave one to Pakistan and to India.
Can I just, Marty, it's nice to see you. If you'd like to, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to be included in our email list for our next events, please throw in your email in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so the special metals, besides Huntington and West Virginia, it has facilities, smaller facilities in New York, Kentucky, Indiana, and 2 in Australia. Another company that is into the nickel alloy business is a company called Haynes International. And it headquartered in a place called Kokomo, Indiana. Haynes International is one of the world's largest developers, producers, and distributors of technologically advanced high-performance nickel and cobalt alloys. The company's products are sold primarily into the aerospace, chemical processing, and industrial gas turbine industries. Consist of high temperature resistant alloys, or HTA products, and corrosion resistant alloys, or CRA products. HTA products are used by manufacturers of equipment that is subject to extremely high temperatures, such as jet engines for the aerospace market, gas turbine engines used for power generation, and industrial heating equipments. Anyway, it goes on and on. It had 300 and between three in sales and revenue between 2021 and 2023. It went from 338 to $590 million. My thesis, 2020, 22, and 23, as that was connected with the war in Ukraine. I don't have any proof of that, but that would be the first thing I would check. It makes about $45 million in profits a year, 1,248 full-time employees. It's owned by a company called Acerinox, which is a Spanish company. It's one of the world's largest stainless steel manufacturers.
That's what Acer Inox is short for.
Pardon?
Acer Inox is Acer Inoxable, which means stainless steel in Latin.
Okay.
Leave it to the Spanish.
Yeah, anyway, the Haynes was just bought in 24 by this company, Acerinox. And the price worked out to about $970 million. I got some information on the various manufacturing. I don't know if I want to read all these. Kokomo facility specialized in flat products. Arcadia, Louisiana is a nickel feedstock produced at Kokomo to manufacture welded and seamless steel nickel alloy pipe, tubing, and fittings. See how, like, when we get into making things like pipe and tubing,
value added.
but it's just the next step. Mining, milling, smelting, or refining. That's only worth $20. One more step, anyway. North Carolina manufactures high performance alloy wire and small diameter bar products. High temperature resistant alloys, corrosion resistant alloys. Oh, Here's an interesting. Raw materials represented an estimated 48% of the cost of sales. So that's 48% of what they produced came from mostly nickel or other cobalt, other nickel, a major component of many of the company's products, accounted for approximately 43% of raw material costs, or approximately 20% of total costs in fiscal 2023. The key raw materials included cobalt, chromium, molybdenum, and tungsten. Although alternate sources of supply are available, the company currently purchases nickel through an exclusive arrangement with a single supplier to ensure consistent quality and supply.
But they don't give a shout out to Vale?
Pardon?
But they don't give a shout out to Vale? Like it's a single supplier, like, gee, I wonder who they could be.
I think this, yeah, that has to be valid.
Yeah.
Like, that has to be valid. But I think I got this from one of those U.S. Form 10K or whatever it is that the U.S. Government has companies work out. Oh, here's a map I made.
Kokomo.
Yeah, from Sudbury to Kokomo, but they may go to Port Colborne for packaging before they go. Like, you know, actually, that might even be shorter. But it's 11 hours and 24 minutes, 1,142 kilometers.
So so Manitoulin Island is here, right?
Yep.
Manitoulin Island is here.
Yeah.
So
What
then
is there?
Manitoulin Island, right?
But yeah, I
And
don't.
then Sudbury is right here then?
What?
Sudbury is right here,
Sudbury is where it says Trans Canada Highway.
right?
That dot, that's Sudbury.
Right. So then what is this right here? What is,
Right.
That would be Sault Ste. Marie.
so then it's so is it like
So they
shipped
can-
down or is
Well,
it?
they-
Truck.
They be able to go by rail or truck. They can cross the border at Sault Ste. Marie, and then there's a highway straight down to
Kokomo.
I don't think that's the way they go now. I think they go through Port Colborne, but whatever.
Where is Port
Port
South of London.
Colborne is
East, southeast. of
yeah,
London.
Buffalo. You see that? You see where Toronto is?
Yes, right here,
Okay, a little bit below that, there's another dot.
right here, roughly.
Yeah, no, not that one. The one over
More to the east.
that. Yeah, you're getting closer. Yeah, that's Port Colborne, pretty close. That's Niagara
Right there.
Falls.
Okay, so here's Buffalo right here.
Yeah,
Okay,
Buffalo is that,
fair enough.
and then they'd be straight down the 401 to Detroit or I don't know. I should find that out, but.
So what does Port Colborne provide in this chain of
Okay, Port Colborne was built in 1918 as the first nickel refinery in Canada. As a result, remember I was talking about this dispute about the nickel was mined and smelted in Sudbury. It was shipped down to New Jersey for refining, and some of it was supposedly, or actually did, shipped to Germany during the First World War when the U.S. wasn't in the war yet on this cargo submarine, the Deutschland. Anyway, out of that whole hullabaloo, there was a big demand that a nickel refinery be built in Canada.
Because we weren't satisfied with what people were using our nickel for. Oh gosh, there's another precedent for us. Gee.
Yeah, no, there is.
The Port Colborne precedent, you know?
There's during the 1930s, there was in Parliament, they were talking about that they didn't want to sell Canadian nickel to Germany and Italy and nothing ever came out of it. The Inco was too influential. How's the time? Okay.
We're looking about another 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay. It's 7:30, so we need to be cleaning up fairly soon.
And then we need, so I think, one of the, right now, our prime objectives is that we need to put this into a form that we can present to the candidates so that we can, say, here's what we expect you to do. And we know that this is what's available to you as parliamentarians. Do you intend to do this? And say, like, what of these things do we know are federal and that we know they can do? Like, we know we've got a small list right now of things we know is available to them. Is anybody willing? We know they're going to say no, but it'd be interesting to see how they actually respond to these questions, because I know this is going to be very new for the Liberals and things. I don't think they've ever put it in this context before.
Okay, I have some information on Haynes International I found that I don't have on the other companies. So I'd like to spend a few minutes and just go through that, and then we should probably start packing up because they'll kick us out at 7:45.
Before we do that, I just want to say what I did is I included the link for Palestine Solidarity Sudbury's YouTube page in the chat. What you'll find there is Charlie Angus's reading of our petition. What you'll also find there is the 2 previous episodes of the No Nickel for Genocide Forum, as well as other events we've done.
No. So if you want to look at any of the history of, well, I mean, of all of the history, but certain events, I should give you, remember that thing, the little celebration we had on LaSalle where we...
I'm uploading that, yeah.
Pardon?
We're going to be uploading that.
You're gonna?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, just quickly now, Haynes International Revenue by Product Group. Aerospace increased from $128 million to $290 million through 2023. And again, I have a suspicion that has to do with Ukraine. Chemical processing increased from 63 to 92. Industrial gas turbines, 67 to 121. Other markets, not so much, 58 to 60.
Total product revenue went from 316 all the way to 563, almost doubling.
Yeah. Another one here, Haynes revenue by geography. It's just a little bit down. Most like I can't talk. I do for 2023. US 344 million, Europe 135, China 27, and then there's some other. So mainly in the US and Europe is where it's selling its goods. Revenue by product group. Corrosion resistant, high temperature resistant alloys, again, doubled, 253 to 501 million. Corrosion resistant alloys basically were flat. So the increase in the
High temperature resistance.
high temperature is in the military alloys.
Guns and engines.
Pardon?
Guns and engines.
Yeah.
Jet engine.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a good way, I think, to end off this discussion. Haynes International, pride in its contributions to war.
Silly company.
Pardon?
What a silly company.
Well, I think that was my my heading and not it, but I stole this from the Haynes website. They really like that connection with war. Haynes International is the second largest nickel alloy producer in the United States. In its company history posted in the company website, Haynes gives many examples of how its nickel-based alloys and other alloys that contribute to war. In one section of Haynes' website, did you know Haynes products contribute to the defense of freedom? The contribution of nickel to war and war preparations is openly lauded. Some of Haynes' praise of the use of nickel in warfare is shown below. And this section here is straight from the website. Did you know Haynes products contribute to the defense of freedom? In World War I, our stellite alloy machining tools made manufacture of critical war materials such as the Liberty engine on the de Havilland DH-4 airplane, 3 times faster than the Liberty airplane engines that were manufactured by the Lincoln Motor Company. The aircraft type was also flown by Charles Lindbergh after the war for the U.S. Mail Service. During the Korean War, the GE J4 engine combustion cans and exhaust ducts made from a multi-met alloy powered the North American F-86 Sabre jet fighter. Anyway, it goes on and on and on and on and on. Like, I'm not going to read all of these. Machine gun barrels made from stellite alloys for precision investment cast in Kokomo for use in the World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam. Our alloys were used extensively in the Manhattan Project. Everybody knows what the Manhattan Project is? The atom bomb project. They didn't have nickel. They wouldn't have had that atomic bomb. That's another story. Anyway, there's some other companies. I'm not going to go into detail. Carpenter Technology Corporation is another alloy manufacturer. ATI Technology Company. AK Steel is a stainless steel company. North American Stainless is a stainless steel company. Nucor Corporation is a stainless steel company. Outokumpu Oy, a Finnish company, is a stainless steel company. Anyway, got information on all the, if you want, there's a certain amount, it's useful to go into a fair amount of detail for a couple, but whether you want to go into all that detail for 8 or 10, I'm not sure.
Are you okay with me sharing this document to our the people that showed up today?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. As long as you understand this is a draft version, it's has a lot of information, but it's not gone through enough times and it's not formatted. But it's the information is more. People are more than welcome to use it. I have a lot of information on metal powders, which really shouldn't be in here. Should be somewhere else.
So Steve said good examples of how so much is in service of the U.S. war machine, all kinds of corporate interests in different fields of production, all dependent on the U.S. war machine. Worth exploring more.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, there's a lot more information there, and information on the U.S. nickel supply chain, and anyway, how nickel is used. I gotta go through this and eliminate a lot of other stuff. Yes.
Would any of our viewers be interested would any of our viewers be interested in having this document with them? Like making this document available to them?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, put it on, pass it on and use it. Just remember it's a draft. And don't give it to everybody. If you know them and trust them, that's fine. But if you don't know them, we can wait a while. We'll get this out and probably in a book form. It's going to be a substantial book, I'm afraid. Anyway, I've tried to. We're running out of time. I've tried to give you a little bit of information about how Canadian nickel is used in the United States. A little bit about the import export, where it's ports of entry and stuff like that. And also quite a bit of information about the Special Metals Company and Haynes International, which are two of the bigger nickel alloy manufacturers in the States. And it's obvious when you read through their information that a lot of their product goes to armaments, especially in aerospace. But while we went through the use of nickel in modern weapons, and every significant weapon system has nickel in it. Anyway, next month, May, the plan is to talk about the U.S. Armaments manufacturers and how they operate and how they incorporate nickel. Companies like General Dynamics, RTX, Boeing, McGrammond, whatever it is, McDonald. I forget these names. Anyway, we're gonna be talking more about how nickel is actually incorporated into various weapons of war. And then in June, specifically talking about how nickel and powder nickel is used in the manufacture of jet engines, and we'll look at that. And if anybody has any suggestions or things that need to be talked about and dealt with, let us know. And yeah.
Absolutely.
And I know, just sliding back to when we were debating about why there was that sudden spike in the use of nickel in
207.
they were building this brand new, massive, huge aircraft carrier.
Oh,
And they probably needed to restock what they had put into that sucker because that thing probably used more than anything else in history. So I'm thinking, yeah, that was probably what they were doing was replenishing what they had used in the manufacture of this massive boat. Sorry, I just wanted to toss that out there before I forgot all about it.
makes the steel a lot stronger.
So just a
And
couple
more
announcements.
Yeah. Take a hit.
We're going to be doing. We've already secured the rights to screen the movie from Ground Zero. It's basically an autobiographical movie comprised of 22 short films made by Gazans as they are undergoing this genocide. So we're going to be screening that on May the 24th at 2 p.m. at the Indie Cinema. If you're looking for where to purchase tickets, you can do so. You can do so at the Indie Cinema, or let me just bring this up here. I will give you the link where you can actually purchase the tickets. Let me just do that quickly before they kick us out. There we go. And there we are. This is the link to purchase tickets if you'd like. I also included the document that we were going through today in the chat. So all I'm doing is in the chat. Also, I didn't see Lauren, your email, or Sully or Marty. If you wanted to include give us your email addresses so we can keep you up to date on our events that are coming up.
There's also, well, I don't know if people are out of town, this would work, but there was a plan for a group of people to go to Ottawa on
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yep.
And I don't know if there's any room left, but if anybody is interested, talk to Adnan and we'll sort it out. There's also another event on the same day in
North
North
Bay.
Bay,
Yeah.
which for me is 6 hour trip compared to a 15-hour trip. And given my health, I'm much more inclined to do that. I would provide my car, but not driving into North Bay. So if somebody wants to go to North Bay and is willing to drive, let us know.
Grab the book. I want to show them your book on camera. Here, grab that. Okay, and I'm gonna twist this around. Let's see.
Camera.
So this is the book. There we go. And just give me a moment here. Just a moment. I can. There. So it's there. That's the book. Okay. It's called No Nickel for Genocide, Part 1, Nickel and the Two World Wars. And what we just, the document that you see that I just uploaded, that's going to be included in Part 2, right? Or Part 3?
Well, I don't know whether it's part 2, 3, or 4. I called it part 4, but in practice, it's this red book here laid the basis that Sudbury is synonymous with nickel, and nickel is synonymous with war. And then we skipped because to deal with the present situation with the Zionist war of genocide in Palestine, to deal with Trump's demand for 5% of GDP on weaponry and all the other stuff going on with Trump. Well, we're trying to deal with the sort of the contemporary, and when things are quieter, we'll go back to the history. Yeah. Yeah, but if anybody wants a copy of this booklet, there's 2 ways it could be done. One, you could send us $10 and $5 for handling, and we'll mail you a copy. Or you can
Show up to one of our events.
yeah, and there's also the PDF. Do you have the PDF
I
of
have
this
the
book
PDF.
on the
Yeah.
it's posted, so it's posted on the what is it posted on?
It's not posted anywhere. It was posted on the Facebook group. That Facebook group
Okay.
got banned. Yeah.
Okay, it'll get posted in the next couple of days.
Yes, it will.
Okay. Anyway, thank you, everybody. I hope you found this informative, and we made a little bit of contribution towards the long-term goal of ending the production of U.S. weapons of war from Sudbury nickel. Anyway, and if you want to join us again next, I believe it was the second Thursday in May, but I'll check that. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. It was great to see everyone.
Very good.
Have a great night, and have a great weekend as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Is that my fault?